Hello dear student, I am Professor Devashish Bose, Head, Department of Criminology and Forensic Science, Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Vishwavidyalaya, Sagar, Madhya Pradesh. Today I am going to present a lecture on Scene of Crime, Part 5th, BSc 3rd Sem, on the unit Criminalistic, which has been jointly prepared by myself and Mr. Giriraj Sharma, a PhD scholar, UGC JRF at Department of Criminology and Forensic Science, Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Vishwavidyalaya, Sagar. Today, this interesting lecture is divided into 7 modules. Let's have a look what the module contains. Module 1, Introduction to Crime Scene Documentation. Module 2, Videography and Audio Taping. Module 3, Purpose of Crime Scene Documentation. Module 4, Role of the First Responding Officer. Module 5, Security of the Scene of Crime. Module 6, Crime Scene Communication. And finally, Module 7, Conclusion. Dear students, we will be talking about the crime scene documentation, that is the essential element of crime scene procedure. Moreover, this is time-consuming procedure, but one of the utterly very important step in the investigation of crime. As we know that this step is more systematic and organized in their procedure while it is conducted at crime scene. On the other hand, this step also requires the creativity, innovation and skill of the investigating officer during the time of dealing with crime scene. In addition to this, the success of the crime scene documentation depends on the education, knowledge, wisdom, training, experience and judgment of the investigating officer that set the foundation for crime scene documentation. Crime scene documentation includes the different steps which are as follows: note taking, video recording or videotaping, still photography, sketching and audio recording or audio taping. So dear student, these are steps that has to be followed by investigating officer. In these 5 steps, previously we have discussed 2 steps. One is still photography and sketching. Now we shall discuss about the remaining steps of crime scene documentation. Dear student, as we know that every step of crime scene documentation has its own importance, which cannot be replaced by other methods. In addition to this, there should be the balance among the steps, otherwise they can hamper the crime scene documentation. Moreover, good note taken can replace the good still photography or sketching, while notes with detailed description of the scene can supplement and be relied upon when batteries or film processing equipment fails. Dear student, let me put in another way. For example, if investigating officer wants to record the details of victim's wound, which may not be completely written in an investigator's note, but can often be viewed in videotape or in a still photograph. When we talk about the exact timing for crime scene documentation, that can be started after the arriving of investigating officer to the crime scene. Now, one by one, we shall discuss the above mentioned point. Therefore, let's start with the note taking. Note taking. Dear student, it is the crucial step for investigating officer that is the form of the written record of all the activities or all the items observed in and about the crime scene and their surroundings. Moreover, it also explains that who had come and went from the crime scene, why did one came to the crime scene, how that person moved around at the crime scene. So, investigating officer can note down all the information in his or her notebook or diary. So, the investigating officer should follow some basic principles that are classified under. Note taking should be made in chronological order with respect to crime which had occurred. Note taking must be conducted in minute details, step by step. Note taking should be neat and clear, otherwise, sloppy note taking could misinterpret the information that was recorded by investigating officer. Specific conditions must be recorded, such as absence of blood in a murder case or absence of fingerprint on the doors. Another important thing is that it should be precise and accurate instead of lengthy. Other informative things should not be deleted also. While taking notes, investigating officer should keep in mind that these notes taking can be used by other investigating officer. Dear student, as we know that investigating officer is responsible for the entire investigation, so after getting information about the crime scene, they should immediately proceed to crime scene. After arriving at crime scene, the investigating officer should take the brief information from first responding officer and witnesses present at the crime scene. Thus, investigating officer should grab detailed information from different sources. Then, investigating officer should watch the crime scene. Most important thing is that care must be exercised while dealing with crime scene and not to disturb anything in addition to this. Evidence should not be touched, altered or moved from one place to another. After it, investigating officer should start processing the crime scene. Dear student, now it's the time to discuss what type of information should be noted down as notes at crime scene. So, let's start. Time and date. The crime was first reported to the investigating agency. Type of case. Address of the scene of crime and description of the area. Explanation of the crime or event leading up to the investigation. Now, investigating officer has to write down about the arrival information, mode of transportation to the scene, date, time and address. Name of the person who informed about the crime scene. Now, investigating officer will describe the scene, weather condition, name of all officers present, witness, investigators, any specialized personnel at the crime scene, location of the crime scene, that is indoor, outdoor or mobile, primary or secondary crime scene, location of evidences. Name of persons who took or had taken photographs, made the sketches, collected evidence and conducted the crime scene search. Description of victim, name, address, how did one reach there, condition of the victim, whether he is alive or dead, location and position of the victim. If the person is dead, then post-mortem changes on the victim's body, weapon at scene of crime, etc. Time and date, when crime scene investigation commenced and concluded is also important. Description of the outside of scene, which could include soil, terrain information, type of plants, water body, etc. Dear student, this is another method of crime scene recording and preservation in as such condition that has been left by the perpetrator. In addition to this, nowadays the use of videography at the crime scene has been a routine procedure. Law enforcement community and court of justice also accept videography as one of the evidence. Videography offers many advantages such as affordable models of video camera from which to choose and the increased availability of excellent optics or zoom lenses, wide angle lenses, etc. That's why this is also acceptable to the investigating officer. Dear student, videography should be the first step after walkthrough and afterward photographs of the crime scene should be taken. So, here we shall discuss the actual process of technique for the video recording of crime scene, which is summarized below. Let's start. When investigating officer starts the videotaping with an introduction, during the time of videotaping, another person should explain the crime scene information. The introductory information should include the time, date, location, type of crime, place of crime scene, position of the crime scene, and any other information deemed to be necessary by the videographer. Now you have to shoot the entire crime scene as well as the primary crime scene, victim, and the physical evidences, including macro and micro evidences. Another important factor is the beginning the crime scene video recording with a general view of the area surrounding and leading into or away from the crime scene. Video recording of the trace evidences must be taken with the close-up shot of the physical evidence, obviously with scale. It is also important for investigating officer to videotape the crowd of onlookers and spectators that gather around the crime scene. Many times, suspect is around and mix or mingle with the crowd to observe what's happening. Dear student, if investigating officer want to use the videotaping as an evidence, then they should not be edited or erased. Thus, entire recording should be preserved in its original condition if it is to be submitted as evidence to the court of law. Sometime, video of the crime scene could be edited for refreshing the memory of new investigating officer. So, it depends on the court of law that they may accept it or not as an evidence. Dear student, while video recording of the crime scene, other personnel at that particular location must be silent because their voices can be picked up. So, such type of conversation may prove distracting and sometimes embarrassing in recording. Thus, this video may be analyzed to show the presence of suspect also. This video can also be used to determine the position of the victim or the witnesses. Audio recording of the scene. It is also useful to audio record the crime scene as it may become an invaluable briefing tool for investigators and others. Dear student, it is also a good method of recording and preservation of crime scene in audio form. In addition to this, audio recording of the crime scene helps in the determination of the location of the physical evidence as the crime scene. Dear student, now we shall talk about the purpose of crime scene documentation. As we know that documentation of a crime scene is a very essential element of the actual processing of the scene. Moreover, documentation of the crime scene provides information with respect of evidence such as where is the primary crime scene, what is it, where it was located, how will it be done, what was done to it, and each and every information that is necessary to the investigating officer to solve that crime. In short word, we can say that it is the method of preservation and recording of crime scene, and it also defines the relationship of physical evidence in the crime scene and condition of the crime scene. Another important purpose of the documentation is that re-evaluation of the scene or physical evidence found at the scene. For the sake of simplicity, we will study it one by one. Documentation of the crime is the permanent record of the condition of the crime scene and its physical evidences. It records what the investigating officer observed at the crime scene. It also explains the activity of investigating officer and defines how did one start investigation. Crime scene documentation is useful in briefings, both at the scene and formal debriefings. Investigating officer may use documentation of the crime scene as guide of the crime scene. Investigating officer can use this for the refreshing of his or her memory. This is also used as preparation tool for hearing or for trial at court of justice. It allows for outside analysis or evaluation. Crime scene documentation may be admitted in court of law hearing or trial. It will introduce the new investigating officer with the crime investigation or crime scene. Dear student, now we shall study the role of first responding officer at the crime scene. In addition to this, first responding officer is the person who first of all reaches at the crime scene, who can be usually from the police department, emergency medical personnel or fire department personnel. As we know that the action of the first responding officer at the crime scene are set the foundation for the successful resolution or solving of the crime. Dear student, as we know that crime scenes are dynamic and rapidly changing its nature with passage of time. So, now we need to protect and preserve it from getting more and more detail about the crime. Moreover, when we talk about the first responding officer, these are the only person at the crime scene who watches the crime scene in its original condition. In addition, there are many tremendous examples in which they change the condition of the crime scene or alter the crime scene. Dear student, do you know what can be the reason? So, let's understand this point. They should have appropriate training, education and experience for performing this activity at the crime scene. Thus, while doing this, they should keep in mind that they will begin the process of linking the crime scene to the victim, to the suspect and ultimately the witness. Therefore, any disruption at crime scene may break the link. So, dear student, in the previous lecture, we have discussed things about the first responding officer. Thus, in this lecture, we will discuss only the basic things such as first responding officer assists the victim, search for apprehension of accused if still present at the crime scene and securing the crime scene. Dear student, now we will discuss about the security of the crime scene, which is of utmost important thing to the investigating officer from all point of view, such as the analysis of the crime scene, identification, collection, preservation and handling of physical evidence or linking between the victim, witness and the crime scene. So, dear student, in short, we can say investigation of the crime scene is the soul of the investigation. Thus, this is a little bit difficult task for the first responding officer as well as the investigating officer. Dear student, the reason behind the security of the crime scene is that it will restrict the access of the unauthorized personnel as well as onlookers, prevent the loss of physical evidences, save the crime scene from distortion. Therefore, for taking such step, now investigating officer must use the physical barrier which is helpful to define the restricted area. There are numerous means available for this purpose like ropes, barricades, tapes or signages which are commercially available that can be used by the investigating officer. Moreover, if they don't have such type of things, they can use the official vehicles from the police or fire department which can be used successfully in highways, streets or larger outdoor scene. The investigating officer should also keep in mind that the barrier's location is significant in that it will locate the area that is to be restricted, but it should be kept in mind that this barrier is not fixed. So, the barrier will be defined the crime scene location which can be changed with the progress of investigation. So, dear student, for the sake of convenience, the whole security of the crime scene can be divided into 3 divisions. That is, first level security of crime scene, second level security of crime scene and third level security of crime scene. This type of security is known as multi-level approach crime scene security. Therefore, under ideal circumstances, this type of approach should be followed by investigating officers. The outermost perimeter or the outermost area of the crime scene can be secured by first level security. The officer investigating should decide the entry and exit point for the team. In addition, the place for the general public should be allotted and restricted. Moreover, the place for the media personnel should also be specified. The second level of security is setting up in an area adjacent to the crime scene. It will restrict to only the police personnel, forensic team, emergency personnel, support personnel and any official vehicle, etc. This portion of the crime scene will allow only higher rank personnel or investigating officers. In addition, the command post should be set up in this level to coordinate all the activities such as briefing about the crime scene, to give instruction to the team members, etc. Level 3 security is set up for the main area of the crime scene where crucial evidences are located. This area should have the strictest control and highest limit of access. Moreover, it will allow only the investigating officer as well as forensic scientist. Dear students, now we will have more important discussion about the crime scene, that is crime scene communication. Crime scene communication is also important, that starts at the completion of the scene survey. Crime scene investigator should communicate to other crime scene investigators or higher rank authorities or officials, forensic team and case investigators about their finding and results of the survey. Thus, it is the communication of finding that begins the crime scene team concept and continues the scientific approach of scene of crime investigation. So, while communicating the information, one should keep in mind that information must be precise and accurate, not to be lengthy or useless. Dear student, crime scene communication is a critical step because no one can keep whole information about the crime scene until or unless if one does this, crime scene investigating officer will misinterpret the information and spoil the investigation. So, specific crime scene responsibilities can be assigned to each team member. For example, evidence searching, evidence recognition, evidence collection, evidence handling, evidence transportation, crime scene photography, scene of crime videography, fingerprint lifting and processing, etc. Therefore, after looking in, we can say this is the work of team concept and management that begins with communication because all aspects of the crime scene are vital. Once the investigator has assigned the responsibility to the team, then they will proceed with systematic and methodological way. Here, I would like to quote, "Sharing is caring." So, each and every team member must share their information, finding or ideas to the investigating officer that will expand the knowledge of the investigating officer. As we know that without good communication, vital physical evidence can be missed and proper processing of the crime scene ignored. Dear student, we have reached at the conclusion of the topic. After studying this chapter, students will be able to explain the crime scene documentation, perform the videography and audio recording of the crime scene, define the purpose of crime scene documentation, understand the role of the first responding officer at the crime scene, describe the method of crime scene security and explain the crime scene communication. All these steps should be performed one by investigating officer. Investigating officer should have knowledge of all these basic steps while dealing with crime scene. With all these information here, we come to the end of today's lecture. Do keep in mind what we have discussed today. It's time for you all to do some self-study. This is Professor Devashish Bose signing off. If you want to learn more and enhance your knowledge, you may log on to our website. for MCQs, quizzes, LORs, etc. Please log on to www.cec.nic.in.